Hello and welcome to Simply Tax. It's Friday, January 14, and as we're now finding ourselves comfortably into 2022 and those New Year's resolutions perhaps waning a bit, there is one word that seems to persist as being an underlying topic of conversation, and that's change. Whether it's due to a global pandemic or advances in technology or mindset, it's no secret that the pace of change continues to quicken, and it's leading to many of us across all industries and job titles to feel, well, downright burnt out at times. Now, I've found, but continue to need to remind myself frequently, that how I feel about and deal with change all depends on my mindset. But don't just take it from me. In fact, Steve Jobs once said, innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity, not a threat. On the podcast today, I'm excited to share with you the opportunity I had to speak with BKD's Director of Innovation, Dustin Bobbitt. He brings to the conversation his more than 15 years in product and software development to share his insights on innovation, why it's so important, and how to go about it, whether you're a tax professional like me, in a private equity firm, a manufacturer of widgets, or someone who ships them. You've mentioned innovation. I've mentioned innovation a little bit here, but I find it's just a term that when I talk to different people, it gets defined different ways. It can mean different things to different people. So why don't we kind of start there and dig in with how do you define innovation?
It could be about technology for some people, and some people think it's got to be this like big, massive, changing kind of moving mountains and rocks and whatnot, but it can be the small things. And so I think for me, the foundational definition is solving good problems. That's innovation, and finding a way to solve good problems, whatever that looks like. It could be a process change, it could be technology, it could be, something that we're going to do as a service, but it's just finding a good problem to solve and then finding a way to solve it really, really effectively and purposely that, is beneficial to the recipient and also brings a good value to us as a firm.
I like that definition. You could probably see the gears turning here a little bit of thinking that, it's much broader than I think people think, right? Because a lot of times and maybe I harken it back to like this research and development, the impression that it has to be, lab coats and
Yes.
whatever else. And innovation can really be anything, I guess, right?
It can be. Every problem that needs to be solved, you can look at it in a way that maybe it's never been looked at before. You could do the same things you've always done, and that's okay. But when we think about innovation, we're just looking for an effective way to solve that problem. And for us, the definition of what are good problems is really where we spend probably that heaviest research that you kind of talked about. No lab coats, but we are definitely trying to assess what makes this problem bigger than this problem perhaps, and then kind of that's where we then tactically get in and say that's the problem we're going to solve. We then scientifically kind of figure out, is it a tech solution? Is it something that we use people for? Is it a process change? And we kind of figure out what the solution is second after we've defined that good problem.
It reminds me, and I heard this quote recently, it's an Albert Einstein quote about, if you gave me an hour to solve to solve a problem, and I'm going to butcher the quote,
Yep.
but basically he'd spend 55 minutes,
That's right.
figuring it out, and then 5 minutes actually solving it. So
That's
kind
right.
of the same approach?
Yeah, we are very much, if you look at the process we follow, we spend more time researching, investigating, kind of evaluating, and then sort of the final step, it feels like you've run the race already, and then it's like, okay, now go execute, and then we build it. And so a lot of our work is foundationally on, are we solving the right problems, and figuring out the why and the value to us, the value to the clients, quantifying that, and then the build is sort of the byproduct at the end.
So like you've already got the path already laid out, and
That's
you know
right.
where you're going at that point.
Makes it much easier, and it's a smoother path, I feel like. And so, it's a disciplined process, and it feels meticulous, but it makes sure that we don't get down the path and get too far from what our clients are looking for in the problems we solve, that we're building it in a purposeful way, that we're not, going to burn a lot of time and tech on the wrong technology solution and then look back and say, man, I wish we would have done it a different way all along. So.
Right. No, because time and resources aren't infinite.
That's
so
right.
You have to make sure you're going the right direction. And
That's right.
The why,
Mhm.
perhaps for some people, has kind of become a little clearer, right?
Yes.
Of why we need to constantly be thinking about and not only necessarily changing what you've always done, but at least looking at it. In light of that, and maybe if there's still some holdouts that are, skeptical of this idea of innovation, why is innovation so important to an organization, I guess, just generally speaking?
Nothing is certain. Everything's constantly changing. It could be the environment around you. It could be the people around you, the competitors. you don't know maybe what everybody else is doing. And so if you assume that the path you're on is going to be the perpetual path for 100 years or another 50 years even, you might be short-sighted in looking that way. And so you've kind of got to almost disrupt yourself to ensure you don't get disrupted by somebody externally that you weren't anticipating. And so for us, we believe that looking at internally what we do and how we do it, how we solve problems for our clients, and knowing that we're evolving allows sustainability. And that's really what it's about in our minds, is creating sustainability for the firm, our clients, and kind of in a cohesive manner that we're all kind of, again, surviving the next 50, 100 years on and on as organizations.
Maybe I'm going back to how you defined innovation too, that the word creativity wasn't necessarily in there, but you're finding
Yes.
creative solutions. But I think sometimes people kind of think of creativity as the masterpiece that's hanging up in the art museum or
Right.
something like that. But I mean, the process you're talking about is not that, but it has elements of both, it sounds like.
It really does. When you think about, in my world, building products, it's kind of a blending of science and art, and you're kind of bringing it all together. You look at the people that research and investigate why you should solve something. There's financial elements to that. There's market research elements to that. So it's a lot of data analysis. And then you kind of move over and you start talking to clients, and that's really a communication experience and a dialogue, and learning and hearing a narrative from a client to then turn around and build a product that speaks back that problem into a solution. And then you've got your engineers building something, and engineers, they are artists. They are looking at what they're building, and they care about the way it looks and how somebody's going to interact with it and the clicks that you're going to kind of go through. And so it is a blending of science and art and communication, and just, it's technology and people all kind of homogenized together into a total user experience.
So I know that there was a recent article that I saw that you were quoted in, kind of looking at innovation in the private equity firm space. So maybe if we're going to kind of drill it down a level to I guess looking specifically at private equity in that space, why would innovation be important to a private equity firm?
I kind of see it in two verticals, maybe a little bit. You think about that entity, the private equity group as a whole, and the benefit to them. They're trying to have clear line of sight into how their portfolio stands, and what's coming in, what's kind of going out, and making sure we can provide solutions that give them a picture, whether it's data, financial information, whatever the outcome that they're looking for. We want to provide them tools that allow them to see across the broader landscape, because it's very hard when maybe they've got pieces that come from different industries or different sources to kind of bring it all together. How do they see a singular story? And it's really hard to do sometimes when you're talking about maybe disparate, unique companies brought up under one entity. And so, I think for them, that's one component of what we're looking to do. But then I think about the singular businesses themselves within, owned by a private equity group. We can bring value to them as well. And so we're strengthening that company as well to ensure that, are they, at threat for cyber issue, and so we're protecting them from a technology standpoint and just a general business operations flow. Maybe if they're a healthcare group, we've put a lot of emphasis on our healthcare solutions, and so those play well for private equity owned healthcare organizations. And so it's bringing value at that business entity level, and then overall helping the portfolio make sure it's got stronger performance, stronger outcomes kind of overall.
Yeah, maybe we just back up and talk about innovation at BKD, because I mean, the stereotype generally holds that maybe CPAs aren't the most
Right.
innovative. I mean, I think we just cleared that we're not allowed to wear the green visors as tax guys anymore. We're still dealing with that change, and I mean, we're a really innovative group here.
Right.
We have colored visors. So it's just really getting out there. Okay, so I made this same green visor reference recently on my team, and I got a few awkward chuckles before someone kindly told me they had no idea what I was talking about, as it seemed that my green visor joke was about as fresh as my references to the movie Office Space, which, by the way, I still say is a classic worth watching, even if it came out before your time. So as some background here, compliments of a trusty Wikipedia search. Green visors or eye shades are a type of visor that were worn most often from the late 19th century to the mid-20th century by accountants and others who were engaged in vision-intensive, detail-oriented occupations, and they were designed to lessen the eye strain caused by early incandescent lights and candles, which tended to be hard. In fact, the classic banker's lamp had a green shade for similar reasons. Now, for the record, I don't own a green or a clear visor, but maybe perhaps it's time to bring them back into fashion. So what does it look like? We call it BKD Edge at BKD. What does it look like? Who's on the team?
Our innovation department very much is unique in my mind. We are kind of a multitude of backgrounds. We're a blending of product managers, really people that have built software and technology solutions in our past life, maybe for different industries, even from telecom, manufacturing, healthcare. So we're really product practitioners, and a lot of academic knowledge, which plays really well into that market analysis and research and finding the right it that we need to solve. Everybody's kind of got their degree, their thing, their story. But that's sort of one arm of my team. The second arm of the team is the software side, and so we have software engineers that sit in our group that are the builders and the creators of these solutions, and we kind of blend both together to come up with a total solution together. But not a CPA really within the group. Our job is to talk to the CPAs and talk to the accountants, and again, hear the story, hear the voice of our customers, our clients, and make sure that we're solving those good problems that we're looking for. And then we round out our group. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge, we put a lot of emphasis on even interns. And so we expect the same level of commitment to the work we're doing and the craft of what we do from our interns, who are college age kids trying to figure out where their life is going to take them. And we want to hook them in and show them how innovation at a accounting firm is actually pretty awesome. And our hope is they never leave, and that they realize that we can build products at a CPA, an advisory firm, and it doesn't take away what we do on the other side within our client base, going out and providing unmatched client service. Our people are still the power of the firm. It's just a matter of our group repurposes that power into hearing, learning, assessing what our clients are asking for, need, experience, feel, and turning it into a solution that they can use when our people can't be front and center right in front of them. So that's what my team really is all about: is good listeners, good communicators, science oriented, and analytic based type people, but definitely from different walks of life, maybe from a traditional CPA firm might look like.
Well, I mean, going back to your definition again here, right? I mean, it's all about finding solutions to the right problems and identifying them, right? I mean, you need variety of different backgrounds and experiences to be able to weigh in on that, right?
I think that's been a differentiator for us, is being able to blend the experience that's kind of always been foundational to BKD as a firm, pairing it up with folks that come from a different, vantage point, and can say, have you thought about looking at it this way? And that new perspective, I think, has just injected a whole different kind of opportunity for BKD, and we're leveraging that into better builds of solutions. If you look back at our program and this department, even 3 years ago, just fundamentally, we've changed from kind of focusing on, you tell us what you want and we'll help you kind of build it, to now we are sitting alongside you in the cockpit flying that plane, figuring out, where are we going, what's it going to look like, and bringing the right amount of value to the client when it's all said and done. So I think it's a change for the better. It's change for the firm, and really going to set the tone for what innovation and product development can look like in the accounting world.
Innovation, I guess, right? Constantly iterating and innovating. So I'm an accountant, right? I'm the tax guy. I always like the examples. Give me an example or two of how that process has come through, and then what the outcome was in terms of a new innovative idea or product or solution.
I kind of harken back to our healthcare group. I think they've put a lot of emphasis on, really helping clients perform better. And it goes beyond just the financials. It can be, operational performance. And so a couple examples that kind of strike me is, we have a product for denials. And so you're kind of looking at your claims and figuring out where your misses or your missed potentials are. And it's helping create a change management opportunity. And so, that idea has worked its way through. An innovator had an idea, they brought it in, and so we helped to kind of shape the look and feel of what that solution, that deliverable back to the client, that really became a product, and trying to make sure it had the right user experience for the client, that it was going to bring the value that the client was looking for. And so at the end of the day, they can use that tool to figure out where their risks are at in their denial process, and they can try to figure out what changes they need to invoke. Even our most recent innovation of the year was for healthcare with BKD Foresight, and it's really a forecasting and modeling solution that gives clients the ability to kind of do what if scenarios, and kind of analyze, where they're at today versus where they could be at, and determining risk factors or potentials, pros and the negatives even as well, but in being able to anticipate. And so again, it's not about the here and now problem. That's even, again, looking towards the future. And we're trying to figure out what's going to be the problem for tomorrow that we need to be prepared for. And so I think that's a really great solution that we stepped in and we helped them kind of come up with the right fit for them and ultimately what they took to the market.
And you'd mentioned cyber at
Yes.
some point there earlier, and I know there's a solution and there's an innovation that's come
Yeah.
from the group on that area. I mean, that's just a constant
Yes.
thing that's growing and everybody has to deal with. So you could
Yes.
talk a little bit about that.
You can't go a week without finding a new article about something cyber hack, a cyber threat, and it's not industry specific. It's kind of everywhere, and so no industry is safe. Some folks kind of assume it won't happen to my business. What could they take or affect in my business? But the reality is if you operate anything that can affect goods, services, even your own financials, patient data, anything like that, it's all at risk. And so for us, we've tried to create a suite of solutions that help defend against that, and sometimes it's going in and actually attempting to hack into their systems and showing them the holes in their system and showing we can get to this data and you need to realize where you're most vulnerable, trying to avoid the problem before the problem happens. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's already too late, and so we're trying to step in and help figure out what can we do to make it better so that way it doesn't become a problem in the future. But I think every day there's going to be a new kind of evolution. Unfortunately, cyber terrorists are innovating themselves, and
Right.
they've kind of come up with new ways to attack everybody from individuals to businesses. And so we've got to be vigilant and trying to solve those problems, evolve what we offer. And we're always looking at even what we've put out there as it stands today. We look at, BKD Red Team, and we ask the question, is it good enough? Is it as good as it could be? What could we do to make it even better? What could it do to help clients even more? And so even something that's in the market, it's available for usage, we're still asking questions about how could we refine it for tomorrow, because we don't want to just get stagnant and assume it's solved the problem, we're good, and we can walk away. We know that there's an evolution on the other side, so we need to evolve our solution as well.
Based on headlines in the news, cybersecurity remains a top issue, and you can learn more with Cy the Cyber Guy in episode 134, as well as in an upcoming episode where we'll look at top issues facing us in 22, which, spoiler alert here, includes cybersecurity. We have talked about this, or you've mentioned this process in the way and how you go about it. So those are great examples. Maybe walk me through a little bit of the process and how that deliberate element comes about.
Absolutely. So we really try to start with that ideation process, and we try to create spaces where people can innovate, whether it be coming to an innovation tournament, or we host a virtual event, or we even just pose questions, challenges, thought-provoking kind of instances. We want to draw out really great ideas from anybody in the firm. You don't have to be a partner or a managing director type individual to create a great problem to be solved. You don't even have to be an accountant. It's just somebody in the firm that kind of sees, hears, knows, feels, or has an aha moment of, hey, we should be thinking about, X or Y or Z. And so we start with ideation, and that's really kind of the foundation. And then from there, we work into that research step and trying to figure out, what do we know? And then what do we not know? Fill the gaps kind of in what we don't know. What are the risks if we don't do something? What are the risks if we do something? Opportunities kind of through the works. And then at the end of that, we kind of say, yeah, let's keep this moving. And before we build a single thing, we create kind of what we call a prototype. And with that, we're really, again, it's like a science experiment. We're kind of hypothesizing, we think the solution to this problem is X. And we're going to take that and we're going to start to show it to clients or prospects and say, hey, we believe this is a problem. We believe we've come up with a solution to that problem. Do you love it? And if we don't get the great, kind of that resounding yes, we kind of take a step back and say, well, okay, what could we do differently? What would you expect differently? And then we pivot. And ultimately, at the end of that, we kind of come up with the yes, we're ready to build this, or, it was a great idea. We attempted it. We looked at it. Let's move on to the next thing. And that's kind of a detour opportunity to reroute and go back to the front of the process, or to say, nope, we're going to double down and we're going to go get this thing funded and we're going to build it. And that's where we bring in engineers and data analytics, resources, and we truly make something awesome and kind of start to make it market ready. And then once it's ready to go to the market, we kind of put it out there. That's really all of the steps to getting something what we call generally available, which puts it in an actual client's hands. And then that's where we get to these products that are already in market. we kind of have this market assessment stage where we're always checking to make sure, is it still serving a need? Does it still bring client value? Are there other people that have maybe stepped into that space potentially as a competitor that we need to be looking at what they're doing and figuring out how does it threaten our market share or our client base? And it's a balance, it's a dance a little bit, and you have to figure out based on that, do you need to react? You kind of sit back and say, you know what, we're okay right now, let's hold. Eventually, products need to sunset. There is a lifetime or a life cycle to products, and that's maybe a misconception for a lot of people, is that you can just put something out there and kind of let it sit, and who cares if you do or don't do something with it. And the reality is your client adoption is going to lag off and trickle off. Ultimately, it can actually turn the market sour too if you leave something out too long, and people just kind of get distrust from the product. It doesn't bring value, it looks ugly, it doesn't bring any purpose. It's kind of one of those, well, are you just not doing something with it? What's There's a lot of undertones that kind of come with that, and so you don't want to let things sort of sit too long if it doesn't make sense. You have to have the knowing that it's time, and you sunset it and you move on to the next gig. So that's where we feel like the real key steps in our process look, and we try to follow that disciplined approach everything we do.
Well, two things that come to mind. You're talking about, like, kind of holding on too long, which, I'll say sometimes the accountants we can be guilty of that sometimes, because it's not broken. We
That's
don't even
right, you
fix it
find what
yet, but then
works.
all of a sudden you're kind of there. But even just going back to the ideas, because you mentioned, it doesn't have to be a partner or whatever level of experience or whatnot. And my impression would maybe be that sometimes the best problems to be solved, or even sometimes the best solutions that get suggested, are maybe from those that are just starting out. Even, I mean, have you seen that?
Yeah, I think we find a nice healthy balance. There's nothing that can maybe replace the seasoned experience of a partner that's been doing this for 15, 20 years. So those are always going to be people that they have clients that they've talked to, they've had clients they've learned to listen to. And so we want to tap into that knowledge, but recognizing that, people fresh out of college kind of in this new stage, they are looking at, technology as an infusion of what they do and how they do it to bring even deeper value to the client base. So we want to inject that mentality into everything we do. And so we try to find projects where we can blend people at different levels from different offices. We want as much variety in the experience as we can, in part because it grows our culture. It deepens our bench of innovative thinking and innovative approach. And it gives us a better, more holistic solution at the end because we've kind of thought through all of the potential variations of what we could do versus what we should do, and blending it all kind of nicely at the end. And then we all pat ourselves on the back and move to the next thing. So,
I talk to a lot of businesses, work with a lot of business owners, where innovation is something that they're looking at and considering, but it can also be daunting, I guess, to maybe use that word again. I don't know. Do you have any tips for organizations that are looking to do innovation?
I think probably the key statement I would make is don't look for a singular, most perfect innovation. If you're spending your days like, sitting behind a whiteboard or a desk trying to figure out what's the most innovative, coolest thing I could build tomorrow, you'll never start. You'll just sit there at your desk, at your whiteboard with a blank slate. What you have to do is start small, and you just start innovating little things every day. Again, it could be a process, it could be a service, it could be a tool, but start small and start, solving problems. And ultimately what you'll do is you'll kind of get to that aha moment of, this is a really big problem and I have the best way I've ever thought of to solve it. So iterative innovation actually will create the big, massive, changing kind of, you know life changing type innovations that you're looking for. But if you're starting with life changing innovation, you'll never get there. And even BKD's kind of walk that path. I think about where we started and kind of how we got to ideas. We were kind of in that spirit of, we just got to get something. We got to start, so got to start somewhere. And we've slowly gotten bigger and better and broader and more aggressive ideas. And we're challenging how we do things more than ever before. And I don't think we could have done that if that's where we started. And we kind of walked through that process. And so I would encourage anybody who wants to be an innovative, practitioner, they need to think about starting with small innovations and kind of build up to ultimately that bigger, badder innovation that they're looking for.
It almost sounds like a mindset, almost, right?
Yes,
In terms of how you're going to approach it, and just kind of changing that and saying, "Hey, we're starting small and getting
that's
the
right.
getting the snowball going." Maybe,
That's
yeah.
right. That's right.
I feel like it's such a broad topic, this innovation, right? And just back to the beginning, it means different things to different people. I appreciate your definition. If you had some, I guess, some closing thoughts or even some thoughts that we haven't covered, what would you say?
I think innovation, it's daunting to people because they kind of come at it and they say, "Oh, I'm not the most creative person, or I'm not the most, problem solving type person." But, actually it truly is, it is a team effort. I mean, you've got to have the person who can be the kind of creative, wild idea person that's out there. You also have to have the person who's a good bridger. They bring all the right people to the table and they can inspire and motivate. You got to have somebody that will actually do stuff. There sometimes you can get people that are very creative in mind, but maybe not disciplined in execution.
Hmm.
So it's a blend of those folks, and then you have to have people that, as you're building it, as you're completing it, that are the cheerleaders. They're going to champion the thing that you're taking to your client base, or even within your organization, and just saying, "We did this awesome thing. Come love it with us." And so it really, if there's like 4 or 5 character kind of pillars that make up a really good innovation culture. And so you don't have to be the most creative person. Honestly, if you were to look at my team and put us, kind of in a room, I would tell you I'm not the most creative person in the room. I am very good at bringing the right people together and trying to kind of bring the strategy of the creatives, the doers, the cheerleaders. I'm good at bridging people. And so, I lean on other creative minds to really drive that creative force in totality. So even myself, I realize that's not my strength. And so if I wanted people to kind of be left with anything, I don't want them to think, "Oh, I'm not an innovative person, therefore I can't innovate." It's a team effort. It can be that, again, you start small and you get better at it. You kind of have to work your own innovative creative muscles, but it is about knowing, there are other people around you that are going to be innovative masterminds, and plugging in with them. And it's a team effort, and nobody's going to, succeed by themselves. It's kind of that collective that's going to be the success. So that's probably what I would leave people with, and thinking about how to go and get started with it, and just embrace an innovative mindset.
For those that are within BKD, I know you're in front of a lot of different people, and there's places to go, but what are they, and how can they get in touch with you, or if they've got an idea, or what's the process they should follow?
There's a lot of ways to connect with our group. We keep a storefront kind of information, and that way they can kind of come to us and learn what we're doing, see what we're doing. They can also submit an idea there. They can ask for help. Even if they're maybe not sure they've got a great idea, they can come to us and say, "Hey, I want to consult. I want to talk to somebody and help make my thought better, stretch it a little bit, challenge it a little bit." So we can kind of coach people even in that vehicle. And then from there, if it's really about going back and saying, "Hey, I think my clients are telling me something," we've got to listen. We've got to really be kind of asking probing questions, and not just sort of doing the A to B of the day-to-day work, whatever we're doing for the client. We need to be kind of challenging them, and asking our clients, "What keeps you up at night? What's the problem that just seems to perpetually exist every day, every week, every month, and you're not sure if your business can last if that problem continues?" And so if we're starting to ask questions like that externally, that's where we can draw really great opportunities back internally and get those submitted and start to operate them and work them. So we are an internal group, but really everything we do, our lifeblood is drawn out of what our clients do. And so we've got to be sourcing through them back to the firm. And that's where I would kind of encourage people to go and seek out good problems to be solved.
Well, hey, this was a fun conversation. I feel like we're going to have to innovate on the conversation and keep having it. So,
Absolutely.
thanks for sitting down with me, and yeah, I've enjoyed the conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
Okay, so here's my question to you. Whether you're someone at BKD, another firm, another industry, or even just someone looking to innovate in your day-to-day life, what will you do to start thinking more innovatively and to get involved with innovation this year? I would love to know, and for you to join the conversation and share with us on social media. You can find me out on Twitter, where I tweet about tax at Damien Martin CPA, on Instagram at TaxDad, on YouTube by subscribing to our Simply Tax YouTube channel, and out on LinkedIn. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, or perhaps more importantly, if you didn't, please let us know by leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts, or by dropping us an email at simplytax@bkd.com. I'm Damien Martin, and thank you for listening.
The information contained in this episode of Simply Tax is based on data available as of the date of its release. BKD is under no obligation to update this information if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances. Any information provided is not to be considered as tax, legal, or financial advice. Please consult your tax advisor before acting on any matters covered.